Alrighty, here we are. Another episode of the Ballbusters Show, and we're going to be getting into the head coaching carousel. It's 2026, and we're putting up numbies. There are nine total head coaching vacancies, with one of them already being filled. Um, this is a big number, however, not the biggest of this 21st century. 2009, we had 11 total head coaching vacancies get filled. And while that's a crazy number, these last couple of years we've been putting up about 8, 9 a season, and this one seems to be like it's going to be one of the more interesting ones of the last couple of years. So I'm gonna kick it off to Lawrence, let him do a little rapping, and then we're gonna get into it.
Yep. Yeah, we got a lot of names here, a lot of open positions. Let's start off with Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins. He was fired. Kevin Stefanski, the Browns. He was fired. Pete Carroll from the Raiders was fired. Mike Tomlin, he stepped down for the Steelers. Raheem Morris for the Falcons was fired. Jonathan Gannon for the Cardinals was fired. Brian Callahan from the Titans was fired. John Harbaugh was fired from the Ravens. He just got that big job in the Giants. Um, yes, we got a lot of names and a lot more names that will be coming up here. There's been a lot of speculation too, a lot of talks, a lot of what ifs. Deion Sanders for the Browns. John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, are they going to do like a celebrity wife swap kind of thing? That, of course, is out the window. Again, John Harbaugh took the job with the Giants. I think it's a very interesting decision. John Harbaugh, of course, nothing against him. I mean, he's a great coach who's had a great time with the Ravens, won a Super Bowl, and I think he'll do great work with the Giants. What do you think?
I think personally, I think it's an interesting move. While I think Harbaugh is a great coach and someone who can definitely help develop a quarterback and instill a good culture in New York, I think there's also, pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. There's also some underlying questions that I don't know if we'll ever get answers to. With the Ravens players seemingly pushing John Harbaugh out and some failing relationships and things of that nature, that while we've heard about these things and we've gotten the sound bites or, you know, messages from players, there's nothing concrete. It's one of those things where you can only get so much info out of an NFL locker room
Yeah,
before it becomes he said, she said. However, I have always felt that a young quarterback should also get a young coach. I'm not going to say I don't have numbers, I don't have historical relevance to back up my claim at this moment. But when you get a young coach who really wants to make a name for himself and put together a scheme and really grow with his players, it's harder when you have a coach that's been in the league for as long as Harbaugh has and him needing to kind of get out of his old ways or leave preconceived notions at the door. The experience is beautiful, and obviously, Harbaugh has had a run of great quarterbacks. With great might be a slight overstatement with Flacco. It's not Flacco slander, but uh, obviously Lamar's had a fantastic career to this point. But Harbaugh also has a special teams background, and I'm interested how that's going to play into things. But for a franchise that's been looking for a coach to instill a certain type of culture and get the players bought in for a long time at this point, since Tom Coughlin left, I think that getting someone who has that championship pedigree and can build a culture is a good move. I'm just interested if John Harbaugh is that coach that we think he is. He's had the success, he's had the records, but in terms of that locker room aspect, was he really? that guy is where that's where my biggest questions lie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, on paper, I see it.
Absolutely.
Of course, you never know. I think, there's a lot
Unfortunately,
of,
the game is played on grass.
hey, not always, but, no, yeah, on paper, I mean, there's a lot of great developing talent on the Giants, a lot of young talent. Jackson Dart, who, is a quarterback that loves to run,
Mm.
and Lamar Jackson's the same way. A couple of rushing QBs. I think, the official narrative is that there were disagreements with the broader coaching staff of the Ravens. That's why they decided to let him go.
Mm.
But yeah, of course, there's all kinds of other aspects to it, but I think I was always saying that the Giants just need to get a good coach, and they will be a okay. And we'll see. We'll see.
No, they definitely have the pieces there. Let's see if there's someone
Yeah.
that can put them together. Let's build that puzzle. But to continue on from here, we're gonna do a little more on the openings aspect of this. Check out the teams, see how we're feeling in terms of what kind of coach would fit here, things of that nature. And we're gonna start off with the Steelers. That's the interesting one. It's more likely that a Supreme Court justice is replaced than a coach is hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's there's more turnover in the Vatican. Like it's it is a wild time to be alive when the Steelers are looking to get a head coach. And I think they're going to be, as surprising as this may seem, one of the more sought after jobs. Not from a roster or team construction perspective, sheerly from a pedigree perspective.
Right.
From you're going to go coach the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's Chuck Noll. It's Mike Tomlin. It's Bill Cowher. There's a lot of big names there, and you're going to be putting yourself right next to those. Like I said, while there's definitely some failings in terms of their roster construction and in terms of what kind of capital they have for the future, I think that that would be enough for a coach who's really believes in themselves and really is striving for greatness to go, yes, I want this job.
No, I mean they have so far interviewed 8 people. 6 of those are sitting defensive coordinators. I definitely do believe, that they will, in the end, land on a defensive-minded coach. That's just historically what they do. That's what they value highly is that in that team. Um, to run through the quick list here, they have Ejiro Evero from Carolina, uh, Jeff Halfley from Green Bay, Jesse Minter from the Chargers, Brian Flores from Minnesota, Anthony Weaver from Miami, Chris Shula from the Rams. Those are the defensive coordinators. And then they have Clay Kubiak, who is the offensive coordinator from 49ers, and Nate Scheelhaas, the passing games coordinator for the Rams. I definitely feel like, well, yeah, I mean, statistically, it's going to be a DC.
No, it's fascinating, that they would even. This is no disrespect to Nate Scheelhaas, but it's fascinating to me that they would look into a passing game coordinator, regardless, even from the Rams, who have had a great passing game this season, and Stafford's looking like MVP favorite. Like it makes sense that he's getting looked at, but it doesn't feel like. I guess the way I'll put it is, it doesn't feel like a Steelers move, and I do think they're going to lean to the defensive side of the ball. In which case, I personally am very much leaning towards Brian Flores being the next head coach. He already has time with the team in 2022. He was a senior defensive assistant and linebackers coach for them. And I think that while he didn't work out in Miami, it was kind of a, not to jump the gun and get ahead of ourselves here, but the Robert Saleh firing in New York, where it didn't inherently feel like Saleh was the problem. Where here's this defense willing its team to 6 to 7 wins a year, and it's it's not on the head coach at that point when they're coaching the defense. Um, so I feel like Flores does deserve another shot at coaching, and I could see
Yeah,
Pittsburgh being a great fit for him. But no, it's I don't want to say set in stone, but in my brain, it is a defensive coordinator that will be the head coach of the Steelers in this next season.
absolutely. Should we go to the Falcons next?
Absolutely. Let's go to the ATL.
So the Falcons have interviewed Kevin Stefanski, Antonio Pierce, the former Raiders head coach, Mike McDaniel, Clint Kubiak, uh, Seattle's offensive coordinator, as well as Aiden Durde, Seattle's defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, Jesse Minter, and Jeff Hafley. Um, the Falcons have showed incredible promise this season. They've had some pretty remarkable upsets.
Mm.
And I think a coach would definitely complement that. I think they have nothing to worry about if they could get an even just a decent coach.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting. My roommate is a Falcons fan through and through, always has been, and he's obviously disenfranchised by how the season has gone and how they were one loss to the Jets away from making the playoffs. That's how close they were. But the team is in a weird spot. Cousins looked great for the second half of the year, but he is aging, and their young, promising quarterback has torn his ACL for the third time in his young career, going back to college. And as terrible as that is, and not to say that it's it's over for him, it is going to be very, very difficult for him to continue to have a successful career and keep his knee together, which is obviously out of his hands. There's nothing you can do about that soft tissue injury, especially with a prior history. But I know a lot of coaches are going to look at that and go, maybe I don't want this job because it's going to be a tough build. They do not have a first round pick this year. That belongs to the Rams. And there's a lot of, I won't say outside factors because they're definitely in house, but there's a lot of factors to how this job's going to shake out and the type of platform you'll have as a head coach there. And I think that'll definitely drive some people away. But going back to our in house Falcons coordinator, he's out on Mike McDaniel as a coach. Doesn't think he'd fit well with the roster and the scheme. But he's also out on Kevin Stefanski and is really, truly into Clint Kubiak. Wants him to be the next coach and feels like it would be in some ways a mistake to go with anyone but him if they can get him. So a little Falcons beat reporting there, a little on the street action. The fans are definitely pulling for Kubiak. But in my personal opinion, I think Stefanski would be great for that team. Stefanski is a great coach. I know
Yep.
it hasn't really shown up on numbers on the page at this point, but those early years where they had Mayfield and that offense was rolling and they beat the Steelers in the playoffs, it felt like something special was happening, and Stefanski spearheaded that. I don't think that the front office or ownership of Cleveland has done any favors to help Stefanski. Now, I don't know how much of a hand Stefanski has in roster construction or anything of that nature, but the Deshaun Watson move destroyed that franchise. It tanked them for years and years and will continue to do so. And I don't know if I can 100% put that on Stefanski. I don't think that a franchise altering move that destroyed the rebuild process can be attributed to a coach coaching poorly. Like you can't. It's apples and oranges. These are two different things
Right.
happening. And I think Stefanski can still be a fantastic coach in this league, and I think him landing in Atlanta would be a great job for him and a great fit all around. I think he could help elevate that team to new levels, especially with Kirko Change at quarterback. I think they would look very nice. You don't know about Kirko
What did you call him?
Kirko Chains. Okay, for those of you that don't know, Larry's only been watching football for this season and the season prior to this one.
Yeah.
The Vikings got a big win on the road and they were flying home, and all of Kirk Cousins' teammates put their iced out chains on him, and he just had the shirt off and he was dancing. So he is referred to as Kirko Chains now. But that's besides the
Fair.
point.
Fair.
That's how I feel about the Falcons. And I think that while any of the coaches they've interviewed so far would be a good fit, I do think an offensive minded coach is kind of where they need to fall because that's where they need the most help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't have much thoughts on the Falcons. Should we kick it over to the Ravens?
Absolutely. Let's go to BMO.
All right. So, a lot of familiar names here again. The Ravens have interviewed Mike McDaniel, Stefanski, Brian Flores, Jim Schwartz, the Browns defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, Jesse Minter, Cliff Kingsbury, former Commanders offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, Chiefs offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, Vance Joseph, Broncos defensive coordinator, and David Webb, Broncos quarterback coach and pass game coordinator. Um, yeah, Ravens. Again, this is a team that's very confusing why they're not in the playoffs right now. Going into the season, they were Super Bowl favorites for a lot of people. Um, do I believe that John Harbaugh was a problem? Not entirely. Maybe a little bit, but not definitely not entirely. I think this team has been struggling with certain things for a few years now. Just key mistakes these past few playoff appearances. Um, and I guess they just finally decided to pull the trigger and try something new.
Absolutely. Sometimes a change of scenery is just the best thing you can do for both parties. And I think that just very similar to the Tomlin move, there was a little bit of writing on the wall, and it was time for both parties to just move on, do their own thing. And I think that Baltimore is a very, very intriguing spot to go. They obviously have a great roster. They had some serious injuries this year that really affected them, whether that be Lamar missing a chunk of games or Roquan Smith, their stud middle linebacker and defensive signal caller, just to name a big one on each side of the ball. And Derrick Henry's fantastic, but you can only ask so much of a 30-plus-year-old running back,
Right.
even if he may be above whatever the human race is capable of. He's he's still an aging running back. And I think that the team being as close as they were to the playoffs, regardless of all that, is a testament to the roster construction as a whole. Um, and I think they're covering the bases of offensive and defensive, minded coaches in the interview process that I think they're going to make a very, very informed decision. Although, in terms of some of these candidates we have on the board, Matt Nagy being in coaching cycles again is very interesting. I think there's a part of me believes he deserves a second shake at head coach and should get another try. But there's the other part of me that says his most successful seasons coaching offenses, Patrick Mahomes was at the helm. My grandmother could coach a team that's got Patrick Mahomes at the helm, especially when you got Andy Reid doing the head coaching. That's a light load. And while I think that doing their due diligence and interviewing everybody is a good move. I think that they should look elsewhere in terms of maybe grabbing a fired head coach, a someone who is recently coming off a job. I think would be a good move for them.
Yeah.
And this isn't supposed to be a prediction show, but it's kind of shaken out that way a little bit. I think Mike McDaniel would be a great fit in Baltimore. I personally think that he would get that offense rolling. It's what he does. And I think that they have a good defense. They have good coaching there. I know Todd Monken's got a lot of interview interest, and he may be gone, but their other coaching within those ranks is very, very solid. Um, and that makes me think that maybe leaning an offensive headed minded coach is not the worst idea. Someone that's going to look at Lamar and go, okay, I've coached Tua Tagovailoa for years. He's not very mobile, but can still throw the ball. Here's a quarterback who can throw the ball and run with the best of them. I think that's going to open up a lot of Mike McDaniel's potential coaching playbook that maybe he wanted to run prior when Tua was more mobile. But it's obviously this is all just conjecture. This is all just. But I do think that Mike McDaniel would line up very well with what they have going over there in Baltimore.
So no Matt Nagy.
Good.
So okay, because essentially what you're saying is if Matt Nagy was the coach and Tyler Loop, maybe instead of going wide right, maybe it would have doinked a couple times off the. We can move on.
Mm,
That's all my
don't make
thoughts.
don't make me get nasty. Don't make me. Don't make me talk about Kendall Vildor having that
Oh,
touchdown bounce off his face mask into Brandon Ayuk's hands during the NFC Championship game. Don't make me go there. I apologize. We'll get away
so
from this
the
tangent before things get ugly. But
so the Dolphins. Um, Speaking of Mike McDaniel,
mm,
the Dolphins are a team that I can see having a lot more problems in coaching. They have interviewed Stefanski, Clint Kubiak, Anthony Campanile, the Jaguars defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, Chris Shula, and they still have a couple interview requests out there with Joe Brady, the Bills defensive coordinator, and Robert Sala, 49ers DC. Yeah, we have a lot of other issues with the Dolphins here. Tua Tagovailoa being probably number one, just the quarterback position there in general.
mm.
Not, I wouldn't say it's a great, but they do have other pieces that they can build upon.
No, absolutely. There's definitely some intrigue with the Dolphins. There's definitely some things that still look good, and they can, you know, definitely still build around some of the pieces they have. But personally, I felt like Tua should have retired after that last serious concussion. Just from a perspective of family, and you have children, and you're not even 30 years old yet. You are a young man. That to sustain serious brain trauma like that and continue to do it is, searching for terminology here, but like it's unthinkable to me. Like I'm surprised the NFL even let him continue to play.
Yeah,
And when you're talking about a situation such as that, that leads to questions of availability. The best ability is availability. It's a phrase tried and true all this time. And when you're talking about a quarterback, availability is number one. You want a guy who's out there every game. Obviously, things happen, but in totality, you want a quarterback that's playing a large majority of your season every year. And I don't think that's a guarantee with Tua. You also have Tyreek Hill, who looked excited when he injured his leg this year. He looked like he was happy that he didn't have to suit up for the
Yeah.
Dolphins again. I think he's, if you know, if not technically, mentally, he's gone. And there's a lot of questions surrounding that job. I think it's going to be something that falls is a strong word, but like it goes to a coach who is less experienced but wants to build something. It's not going to be an easy job. It's something that someone's going to need to come in and really pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get after it. Um, I'm kind of thinking one of these younger coordinators is going to be where they fall. I don't think a Stefanski or a you know, Salah is going to want to go there.
Yeah.
Um, I think Kubiak's got way too much interest from teams that are in much better positions to fall to the Dolphins. I could see it being Campanile. Is that how we're pronouncing that?
That's, I think, how I did. So,
Campanile, the defensive coordinator from the Jags. I could see that. I could see Jesse Minter. I think they go defensive minded coach here and try to build that side of the ball and surround that with some good coordinators. I think it's I think it's time to bring it down to the studs and rebuild this place. And while I do think there's some potential to get this team turned around and get back on the right track this coming year, I don't think they'll be in a contender type spot, especially with a tough division. But I do think that they won't. While they still interviewed him, I don't think they'll be landing Stefanski. I don't think that's what he's going to be looking for. Or any of these fired head coaches will be looking for.
no,
Mm.
definitely not. Yeah, I don't have much more thoughts on that. But that will go to the Browns.
On a
They have
coaching turnstile.
they have interviewed 8 candidates so far, including their own defensive coordinator and their own offensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz and Tommy Reese, as well as Aiden Durday, Todd Monken from the Ravens, Dan Pitcher, the Bengals offensive coordinator. They've interviewed McDaniel, Minter, Sheila Haas, and they also have a couple requests out for Shula and another one here, Grant Udinsky, the Jags offensive coordinator.
He nailed that.
Um, I'm proud of that one. Proud of that one. What to say about the Browns? Um, the Browns, I feel, have always been horrible at drafting. Can never just keep their head above water. Maybe they have a good year or two here and there. But they have a promising quarterback now. They have a couple, good receivers in there. Um, maybe they could do something here. What do you think?
I think the Browns job is fascinating. We're nearing the end of the Deshaun Watson saga. I think he's got 1 to 2 years left on his deal, and they'll finally be out of that purgatory they've been in. Maybe even cap hell, a better way to state it. But they've just been so tied down with these big contracts, especially for a quarterback that hardly plays and has his history of severe off the field issues. Another instance where maybe the NFL should have stepped in, but we won't get into such heavy topics on this show. Um, but I think that this was a case of maybe the head coach wasn't the issue. I think that running out, I know how the people feel about Shador. And he is a first year quarterback. He is a rookie who did not start the full season. I'm hardly giving an opinion either way on Shador here. But between him and Dylan Gabriel, they tried out two of the worst. And when I say the worst, I mean the bottom two QBRs ever. Ever. In terms of having enough passing attempts and enough numbers to meet the criteria of that. And that tells me that maybe roster construction is still going to be the issue here. They have Myles Garrett. Harold Fannon's looked great. They've had success. Quinshawn Judkins looked very nice this year as a rookie running back. But I don't think that, maybe a crazy opinion here, but I don't know if the Cleveland Browns job is necessarily sought after. And I could see them going once again with another coordinator type vibe. And I do think it'll be in house. I think Jim Schwartz is going to fall into this coaching role here. And you've seen that Cleveland defense. It has kept them, I won't say alive, but it's kept them on bed rest for the last couple of years. It's their defense has been the only shining spot on this team a lot of these last couple seasons. And I think that it would be silly for them to let Jim Schwartz slip through the cracks and not go with him as their next
Absolutely.
head coach. But obviously, they're doing their due diligence. They're getting those interviews out there. I believe they have the most interviews to date of any of these coaching availabilities. But to go from the team with the most interviews, provided you got nothing left to say here, we're going to go to the team with the least interviews so far, being the Arizona Cardinals, who have only interviewed two coaches so far, being Jeff Hafley and Robert Saleh.
Yep. They definitely need to get on it. Um, they do have a few others in mind. Not clear that they've sent requests out though. They have Arthur Smith, Steelers offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur, Rams OC, Anthony Weaver, Clint Kubiak, Thomas Brown, the Patriots passing coordinator, Vance Joseph, Matt Burke, Texans defensive coordinator, and so many names. Jesse Minter and Raheem Morris. Again, it's kind of weird. I don't know, maybe if things just haven't like timed out that well for them. Why they haven't gotten more done, more interviews. Um, and this is another team that kind of slips under the radar for me because they have just been so historically not there. They have had a few good years not that long ago. Um, so I'm wondering, what this team needs. I know that this is another team that is going to have some quarterback troubles potentially coming up. So yeah, what do you think?
I think they already have those quarterback troubles. I believe they're here right now. Um, I think that I want to call it an experiment because Kyler Murray has had some great seasons and has put up some great numbers. I don't think his time in Arizona is going to continue much longer. I think it's time to move on in that aspect. It hasn't been working out in the last year or two. And the team, while they have some young pieces that look good, being Trey McBride, who looks like an absolute stud, he's going to be a top three tight end for a long time in this league. Um, that they do need to fix this roster. That is their biggest issue. Um, and really, I do like Robert Saleh going there. Saying earlier, he's a good coach. He can get a defense running and kind of use them to drag themselves along and move them into a position where if the offense starts clicking, they can win games. He gets that right OC with him and they build that roster up. That team could be very, very good. You could say that about any team. But I do think that this roster is going to be their biggest downfall. And they've got a lot of names here, a lot of people they want to talk to. I love Thomas Brown. He came in to be the interim head coach for the Chicago Bears last season and snapped our losing streak. We went out and beat Green Bay in the final week of the season, and the players liked him and they seemed bought in. But I think he's more of an OC at this point. He needs some more years at that position. Honestly, I kind of like the Cardinals getting Saleh and Brown. Let them work together. But once again, as we're saying with most of these, it's roster. Roster is the biggest
Yeah.
portion of this,
Yeah.
and this is the coach who's going to want to be in for the long haul. And his understanding of that aspect, where they're going to need to go to the bottom and to start there and work their way back up. But I don't have too many opinions on the Cardinals at this point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions unanswered, and time will tell with them.
Yeah. Speaking of time and roster reconstruction, the Raiders, they have all the usual suspects, right? Stefanski, Nagy, Webb, Joseph, Kubiak, Minter, Avero, Halfley. Also looking into Mike LaFleur, Shula, and Shilhas. I think this is going to be at least like a 2-year reconstruction
Mm.
for this team. Um, they have, I mean, a couple good players. They have Max Crosby, which I mean, he's expressing some frustration. He might be gone next season. Um, so we'll see where he lands.
Max
Um,
Crosby, get ready to speak deep dish pizzas there.
anyway, Pete Carroll did. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he really did anything. It's sad because Pete Carroll is a legendary coach, and it would be sad if this is the way that he goes out. So
I think if Pete Carroll never comes back in head coaches again, I'd be comfortable just acting like his Raiders tenure never happened. Just gonna block it out. He's
yeah,
one of 4 coaches ever to win the national championship in college, being with the USC Trojans, and then win the Super Bowl, usually being with the Seahawks. He's the most recent one as well. And I think that this is something I was saying a year ago when this move happened. It was not the right move. This was a young team that needed a rebuild. Everyone knew that the writing was on the wall. Even with bringing in Geno Smith, I didn't think that moved the needle too much. More a credit to what Seattle's been doing with their offense than Geno Smith's general talent. I think that while the Raiders do have some interesting pieces, that it's going to be a long haul. It is. Drafting Genty was a great move. Genty's a great running back, but typically you want to build your own line first and then get your running back in after that. You can find good running backs late in the draft, as my team's shown this year with Kyle Monangai, 7th-round pick, and he's been fantastic. He's been a stud. I won't say he's been as good as Genty, but he's had a very, very good season, and he was once again 7th-round pick. You can find players late in the draft, and the Raiders' offensive line is lacking. Max Crosby, like you were saying, showing some serious discontent with the team and the franchise as a whole. They ruled him out, said he needed the knee surgery, he wasn't going to be able to play. And while he did get the surgery, he posted videos right after that happened of him shooting hoops in his house, shooting off of that knee that they said was unable to
trampoline.
play on. Trampolines. He was
Yeah,
getting after it. And I think that losing Crosby, and this is no hot take, this is pretty logical. That defense is going to look bad. And even if he's not physically gone, once again, like Tyreek Hill, mentally gone. And I think that they need to look the way of an an Avero or a Hapley, a something of that nature. Once again, build that defense. build that culture. Let's tear it down and build it back.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, they have the number one pick in this draft. So it's gonna be an interesting offseason for the Raiders. But they do need to. It's still a rebuild. They're still deep in it. I think they did
Yeah.
was set themselves a year behind by getting Carroll. Um, but speaking of number one picks and teams that need to rebuild, still we're in Tennessee.
Yep.
About the
Last team.
Titans, the last team with a head coaching vacancy.
Um, yeah, I mean, they, again, usual suspects. But there's a couple unique ones thrown in. So we have Spagnuolo, Chiefs defensive coordinator. We have Jason Garrett, former Cowboys head coach. We have Lou Anarumo, Colts defensive coordinator, and then Mike McCoy, which is the Titans interim head coach right now. Yeah, I think this is another team that's going to need a lot of work. And again, they've made some pretty bad decisions these few years, right? Letting Vrabel go, letting Derrick Henry go, letting Willis go. They're going to have to get their stuff together.
No, absolutely. There seems to be a severe lack of patience in the front office as well as ownership in Tennessee, where they're so ready to move on and try the new thing rather than giving time to develop. That's a trend NFL wide, where players aren't given as much time as maybe they need to develop. But I also think that while Tennessee's doing their due diligence in getting out there and interviewing these people that haven't been interviewed by other teams, they also might be looking in the wrong areas. This is obviously in the past. Things are different now. But to interview Spagnola for a head coaching job, in my opinion, is crazy. He's proven to a serious extent that he is not a quality NFL head coach. He has two stints as a head coach. One of them being in 2017 with the Giants, where he went 1-3 as their interim. Bob McAdoo was fired. Ben McAdoo, I apologize. No disrespect to Bob McAdoo, one of the NBA legends. But he also coached the St. Louis Rams from 2009 to 2011. He had 3 seasons there, compiling a 10-38 record. 10-38, with 7 of those wins coming in the 2010 season where they went 7-9. I don't want to say unacceptable, but really another word does not show up in my brain.
Not a head coach.
Not a head coach, in my opinion. Fantastic coordinator, one of few coordinators to win a Super Bowl with multiple teams as a coordinator. And he has 4 Super Bowls to his name. Fantastic work. His body of work is amazing. But he's not a head coach. And I think that, I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but it's a waste of resources to go out there and interview a head coach who has proven he is not a head coach. It kind of shows the lack of cohesion in that Titans front office.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
But this is another place where I think I'd really love to see Kevin Stefanski. Cam Ward has a lot of potential. He looks like he's going to be a
Oh yeah,
great quarterback in this league. Tony Pollard, he just puts up 1,000-yard seasons every year. That's what he does. I believe he's got 5 in a row. And they have some defensive pieces with Jeffrey Simmons being just an absolute monster on the D line. He always has been and will continue to be so. But I think Stefanski would be a good coach to bring in because he's experienced the doldrums of bad seasons with the Browns. And I think he could be fully prepared to go in and understand they're going to be losing games to start, but he's here to build something. And I think that if he doesn't end up in Atlanta, I think he should end up in Tennessee. I think those are the 2 best spots for him to
absolutely.
land, but also the 2 places that could use him the most.
Yeah, Stefanski is an interesting one. I mean, we've heard his name a lot tonight. Um, and I think, out of all of them, I'd say he probably kind of, in a way, might have his pick of the litter here. It seems like everybody wants him. So I'm interested to see where he falls. Then, you have, I mean, Pete Carroll. No news on him, whether he's going to
Mm,
hang it up or try to do this again with someone else. Um, Same thing with Mike Tomlin. We don't know what's going on with him yet. Sounds like he's probably just taking a break,
mm.
which might be good for him. I hear there's some family stuff going on. But either way, he'll find himself something else at some point, even if it's not coaching. I think he would be great on TV.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, and then
You know, if I could interject for a moment,
yeah, go ahead.
I could totally see Tomlin doing a sort of Sean Payton move. Sean Payton, once he was, I don't remember how exactly it went down, but relieved of his duties as the head coach of the Saints, he went and did a year as you know, I won't say a coach, a commentator, but he worked for NFL, the Fox NFL broadcast, doing some interviews, doing some pre and post game work, um, NFL kickoff, which is probably days is just such a blast. But I could see Tomlin falling into that spot and maybe doing TV for a year to stay busy
Yeah,
and even with the family stuff, still have that extra time where you don't need to be running practices all week and things of that nature. You can just do a conference call from your and still be present, Mm.
right.
which is something that never gets considered with the NFL and coaches and things of that nature. Like, some people have a parent and say their father's just not good at his job, right? Had a rough quarter at the office. He might get fired, but he'll find a new job. You might have to move a little bit, but for the most part, people can find more work in their city or their town. You're the son of an NFL coordinator, and it's like, sorry, Billy, your dad went 3-14 this year. We're moving to Seattle now. It's the aspect that never gets talked about, the family aspect,
Yeah,
the long hours, the time away from your family. The NFL season might start in August, September, but it rolls all year round, from OTAs and training camps to, preparing for the draft and talking about scouting. And they're still breaking down film in the offseason because they're looking at free agents. Your time as a head coach is never done. You might get a month or two depending on when you're knocked
yep,
out. I do really commend Mike Tomlin for taking away for his family and, focusing on that aspect of life. Imagine he'll still be connected.
yeah. We hope the best for him. Um, you have a few others here that are kind of interesting. We've seen Mike McDaniel, heard his name a lot. Um, he has a few interviews. He's interviewing all over, but seems that I don't know. It could be a head coach. It could be offensive coordinator. I think it would be nice for him to maybe just try to be an offensive coordinator
Mm,
in Detroit. Just don't go to the Bucks. Please come to Detroit, Mike. Please. Um,
no Johnny Moe. You don't want
yeah,
to bring him back?
no,
No
I
John Morton
never,
for you?
I never want to see that guy ever again, and I never want to see Dan Campbell with the glasses on reading the menu ever again. Um, that being said, please just do it.
Mm. I think an underrated coach candidate that we haven't really spent much time discussing but to this point has had the most interviews conducted with him is Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator from the Chargers. He's got 5 interviews already. He is a hot
Yeah.
commodity. And I think that's rightfully so. The Chargers defense looked great this year. They definitely played very, very well and played a great brand of football. And I'm very excited to see where he lands. There's obviously a lot of options and there's a lot of discourse, but I do believe he will be one of these. Because obviously, with all these coaching candidates, who knows? They might not end this offseason, this cycle with
Yeah.
a job. But I do think that Minter will be one of those ones that definitely lands a job, and we will be hearing a lot more of the name Jesse Minter as the year goes on.
Yeah. Then we have good old Raheem Morris. It's looking like he has interviewed with Cardinals, Titans, Giants. We know the Giants are off the table at this point. I've also seen some other rumors of him becoming defensive coordinator for either the Cowboys or the Vikings if
Mm.
Brian Flores decides to ship out. So that could be interesting.
I think he'll definitely get some more work, but I don't think he'll.
Yeah.
Going back to that 2009 hiring cycle with 11 head coaches, being hired, Raheem Morris was one of them. He was hired by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of people forget about that. This is his second stint as a head coach, and I think it's once again going to be a little while before he gets that job again. I think it's time for him to go back to being a coordinator where he did have some success and focus on that aspect. But I do still understand the appeal and see why people are interviewing.
Yeah. And Jonathan Gannon, in true Cardinals fashion, has only had a couple interviews.
Mm.
Um, he's interviewed with the Cowboys and the Commanders for defensive coordinator roles. Not, I think it's a good idea for him to kind of find something like that.
Mm. No, absolutely. There's a lot of these fired head coaches where it feels like they'll be better suited as going back to a coordinator type position rather than, those couple upper echelon, I'll refer to them coaches in this cycle where it feels like they should be a head coach still
Yeah.
in this league. And that should continue to be their role. Mm.
Yep. It was the same thing with Brian Callahan. He's only interviewed for the Chargers and the Buccaneers for offensive coordinator. Yeah, those are the guys that have been fired, let go, what have you. Um,
So
yeah, that just about covers the openings and the names.
I do believe we have one more very important topic that we both care deeply about, and this goes back to
Yes,
your first year in the football watching sphere,
yes.
and that is the fact that coaches are interviewed before the playoffs are over.
I think it's insane. And this year is just one of the examples of how much of a mess it can be. I know these past few years kind of more or less been the same. Just an overall crisis, I think. Um, yeah, my team, the Lions, being one of the greatest examples of this recently, I think, because last season we were in the playoffs, and both our OC and our DC were interviewing for multiple jobs during the playoffs. So, I mean, roughly about 25% of their time, rather than, being spent with the team trying to win in the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl, was spent interviewing with other teams. And I don't like that. Uh, it doesn't make any sense. We have such strict rules on other teams trying to poach players. So why does this not extend to coaches? If you don't value my opinion that much on the matter, ask Bill Belichick what he thinks about it. He says the same thing. He thinks it's very disruptive, very distracting. So if we're gonna make any big rule changes, anytime soon. I think this needs to be first on the docket.
I absolutely agree. I haven't experienced that much as a Bears fan where it's, our coaches are trying to get poached during the playoffs for multiple reasons. But beyond that, I can only imagine the frustration. Like, as you were saying with the Lions this year, that's San Fran and Seattle. Both of their coordinators have interviewed
Yep.
already, and they face each other this Saturday. They have a big game coming up, a very important game, and their coordinators are being pulled away for these interviews. Whether that's
Yep.
just, is this just on Zoom? Did they even go to the facility? Regardless, they're taking time and attention away from what they really need to be focused on. And I think that is a detriment not only to the league, but to the quality of play
All right.
as a whole. And we have a long off season. There's plenty of time to discuss these things and
Yeah.
conduct your interviews. The draft isn't till, I believe, April. So it's not like they're in a rush. It's it is almost blasphemous to me that, like you were saying, you can get tampering charges and lose out on potentially getting a player because you went too early. It's just a coach. It's fine, but it's
Yeah.
it's not. It is the same thing, and I understand there's compensatory picks, and you can get capital back for losing a coach, but that's not going to overturn a game result. That's not going to, for
No.
example's sake, that's not going to be Robert Sala actually having his defense get a stop on third down. It's it it just makes no sense in my brain. I'm almost at a loss for words about it because these teams are going to play some of the biggest games of their lives, if not the biggest. There's players that'll never reach this high again. And their coach is worried about what's happening 2 states over because they might get to be a head coach. They're going to interview. They have a chance. It's blasphemous. And frankly, can you argue with Bill Belichick? You
Oh,
can't.
yeah. No, absolutely not. Yeah, 17 of the names that we just rattled off uh, are a part of teams that are participating in this year's playoffs. Um, Passing game coordinators, OCs, HCs, quarterback coaches. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But the league we watch, it's always been crazy. It's always been off. There's something
Yep.
happening. But I do think that there just needs to be a serious change to this. There needs to be some form of rule. There's no reason we should
Yeah.
be having our coaches pulled away when there's still season on. But
Like, just imagine you're the 1 seed and, your OC and your DC, are both interviewing for multiple jobs. And then you end up losing that divisional game in a heartbreaking fashion. And then your OC, Benedict Arnold Johnson, decides that he wants to go to the divisional rival next year. I mean, I don't know. Just imagine how painful that must be. Imagine how many sleepless nights that causes somebody.
guys, I gotta side with Lawrence here. I I just think it's absolutely insane that a young coach, fiery coach, handsome coach would look at the best job on the market, something that he can actually build something with and do something with, and not be in the shadow of a guy who's not good at doing what he's good at doing, and want to take that job. That's just awful human behavior, almost subhuman at that. And just kidding. I'm kidding. It's Ben Johnson leaving Detroit was always going to happen. The
It
writing
was
was
going
on
to
the wall
happen.
as soon as he
Yep.
had that first season as their OC, And the fact that he waited a year to come to the Bears is something I will forever be grateful for. A lot of salty fans in the division. A lot of, you know, a lot of people complaining, a lot of green and yellow floating around, acting like they're all this and that still. And, a little blue, a little yellow, you get green. Maybe it's all intertwined. Who knows? Maybe they're not as far separated as they think they are.
Okay, let's not talk crazy here.
But in saying that, you're right. There's no reason they should have been thinking about interviews. And,
Yeah.
I can only presume Ben Johnson, somewhere in his brain, was thinking about his future job during that game. He doesn't have to worry about that now. He's a king. He will live fat and free in Chicago for a long time. But I think on my end, I'm pretty wrapped up on this topic.
Yeah, just about covered it.
I feel like we got everything we wanted to get to. And like I've said a couple times so far, it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason. But we have an even more interesting postseason still unraveling before us. 8
Unfolding.
teams left. We're some 15 hours away from kickoff of the next game. And I'm very, very excited for this weekend slate of football. We've already discussed it here, but it's time. It's go time. We're ready. And we'll get to these head coaches again. We'll be back to talk about them and talk about hirings. We'll get more into Harbaugh as the offseason rolls on. We just kind of wanted to get ahead of this before any more coaching vacancies were filled. It's been a blast as always. Love it. Just love doing this. We have 2 views on our last 2 videos, and I know at least one of them were both of the views. I imagine the other one, at least one of the views comes from us. And I can't even say I'm discouraged or feel bad about it or anything. I'm just having a great time doing this.
Oh yeah.
And I'm excited to continue working here with Lawrence and getting content out for you guys. Stuff to watch. I mean, and I just assume you feel the same exact way.
Oh yeah. Well, this is a lot of fun. Views or not.
The views are not.
That's
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. We're calling it here. It's been a ride. Let's move on to the divisional round. Bear down all the way. Let's get after it.